So that brings an interesting point, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I have high on here. I've always wanted to ask you about this. One of the big points about tourism brings money to real Syrians, which, like you're saying, it doesn't really work like that. And also, a lot of the money they're spending is getting funneled through their travel agency, which is government sponsored, and it's funneled through them. And there's a ton of kickbacks, and the actual money that ends up in like Syrian hands is not very high. And it won't be for a long time because as long as every traveler needs a handler so they don't go to any place they're not supposed to, then they can't increase the numbers. It's all just visibility. It's a complete lie. But that also reminds me of like all the different like sanctions, for example. So all the Assad regime has all sorts of illegal funneled money coming in from various sources, right? And I've always wanted to make a post about this, but I've never just found like the angle to do it. But it's Captagon.
Mm-hmm.
The tremendous amount of money that comes into the Syrian regime through this massive amphetamine trade, like a drug trade, a drug czar situation. It's highly addictive, and it's like the crack epidemic, but with amphetamines. How much do you know about that? Like, have you ever thought about talking about it? I know you talked about it a little bit, but
Yeah.
like, and like there was just a new article I read about it like last month or something. There's like there was a new big push on it or something like, and it's one
Mm-hmm.
of the main reasons why sanctions are so ineffective. There's many reasons why it doesn't work, but one of them is just the drug trade. Like,
Yeah.
talk about it. I want to hear you talk about it.
Yeah.
It's not,
I
I
mean,
mean,
yeah, go for it. Please, 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 Janet, go for it.
I just wanted to say, like,
Right.
there's something with the, everyone always talks about power and money, but they've always used drugs in this way, always,
Always
Right.
everywhere. So
100%.
You've ever had like that friend who's ever done like sold illicit drugs, like that oftentimes either like they weren't all that much of someone who made money other ways to begin with, or they were incredibly desperate to go into that kind of a trade. Yeah, it's very much the first with Assad. He was not a very good person to begin with, not really looking out for the country's well-being. But as soon as he saw like the fact that his country was no longer going to be able to make a lot of like sales to the West, because remember, sanctions are just words. You can actually still dodge sanctions, even if like, especially if your relationship with the USA as a country is not very strong, you can just ignore sanctions, right? And the repercussions, like they're not always enforced either. So even Western allies still trade with the Syrian government, and even European countries are getting fertilizer from the Syrian government, and this is despite sanctions. As soon as he like expended every other option and resource that he could to dodge sanctions and make money from what resources there were in Syria, he just looked at himself and he's like, what if we just got into the drug business? And it seems like it's not only flourishing, but based on the estimates, it's literally more than the entire economy of Jordan, which is insane. I didn't think it was that big, but apparently it's an insane amount of money. And it's also part of the reason why these Gulf countries are normalizing with him now, because he's gotten their countries hooked on this drug, and he's kept funneling so many drugs into Jordan, UAE, and into Saudi Arabia too. Because obviously,
Oh, no kidding.
where is he
Whoa.
getting the drugs? Is coming
where's
from Syria directly, or
yeah. So there's manufacturing plants in Lebanon where Hezbollah is located
yeah?
within Lebanon, and there's also like some plants in and around like regime areas in Syria. That's where it's all manufactured and produced.
I
And
was
then
wondering if Lebanon had a part in it, because
mhm.
I was my roommate in college was Lebanese, and she had, this was the early 90s, and so like she like the oldest in our family, and they go out, and she almost got killed because she found a bunch of poppy fields that they were, the government was protecting.
I've heard there's a huge kind of mafia around hashish in Lebanon. Uh,
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I'm
I
sure.
think the government's like all into that too. But Hezbollah is like the Captagon kings of Lebanon, and Assad too. Like it's led by I think his brothers mostly overseeing it. Considering the money that they're making is estimated to be so high, and how like the state of Syria, that money isn't even going towards Syria,
At
um,
all.
towards
At
Syrian
all.
people. Yeah, exactly. And like you look at like Asma al-Assad, like her purchases, she makes like very extravagant purchases. Everything she wears is like Gucci, Versace, like thousands of dollars just all the time she's wearing them. they like each member of the family has like a $3 million mansion